Okay, welcome to the Kobe Bryant film room, starring Steve Urkel. Now, I know you're wondering, what the hell does Steve Urkel have to do with basketball, right? Well, this is what he has to do with basketball, right? Uh, every time I talk about basketball nowadays, right, it seems like it's always with nerds. Uh, they bring up just numbers, calculations, astrology, uh, uh, symbolism, and all sorts of bullshit to explain basketball. Basketball is not that complex, right? When we talk about basketball, right, we're just talking about the game. We're talking about putting the ball in the basket and defense, right? We're talking about X's and O's. We're talking about running plays, right? So there's a couple of things that I would like to go over with you guys, right? And basically using logic with stats, right? And a part of using logic with stats is knowing the minutes per game somebody plays, right? You just don't shout out 38, 19, and 12. Oh my God. Okay. What was the minutes per game the other person you're comparing this person to? How many minutes per game did they play? Right? What was the shooting percentage for the era? Right? What was the rules, the game changes? Right? What's the role on the team? You wouldn't compare a passer or a playmaking guard, right? Like a Magic Johnson. You wouldn't compare them to a scoring guard in Steph Curry, right? Two different jobs, right? One's the initiator of the offense, uh, the the person who sets the table for everybody else, and the other is a scorer, right? So would you judge Magic Johnson on his scoring? That would be dumb as hell, right? To sit there and say, well, such and such scores more, right? And would it be dumb to judge a player like Steph Curry on his passing when you know good and goddamn well he wasn't? That's not his role on the team, right? So what's their play style, right? Do we factor in defense? Defense is half of the game, y'all. There's offense and then there's defense, right? You have to stop the other team from scoring in order to win the championship, right? Injuries. 39, 16, and 8. Was the other person injured that you're comparing this person to? That ended up altering their numbers, right? What's the historical context, right? What was going on during that time? What was the sentiments around the league, right? The team scoring average. How many points did the average team score during that particular time? That matters because that's also how many points is this person responsible for compared to somebody of a different era, right? Did they win the damn game? Right? Did they win the game? Winning the game is the reason why you accrue all these numbers in the first damn place. So if you're bringing up a whole bunch of numbers in a series when they didn't win, I'm going to tell you to go to hell. Now, I don't mean go to hell, right? I wish everybody the best, but you know what I mean. I don't give a damn about reading a stat sheet, right? What's the player standing in the league? What was the coach's opinion of the player during that time? Because if you weren't alive to see this player play, you would have to ask yourself that question. What was their standing in the league? Were they the best player in the league? Were they considered the best? And that's not determined by us. That's determined by their peers, right? That's not determined by Nick Wright or Stephen A. Smith. That's determined by the people who played them. What about their conference? What was the games? How many games did it take for a team in that conference to make the playoffs versus a team in another conference? Right? This is the whole competition aspect of it. There is a competition aspect to basketball, nerds. Right? You can't just exclude competition. What about intangibles? Nerds don't factor intangibles. Why? Because they're too busy counting numbers. Right? You can't factor anything else in if you're doing math. You got your calculator out. Okay, so let's go through finals competition. Who did they beat? Right? And how tough was their road to get there? The fear factor, right? The fear factor of a player. That matters, y'all. Because some players shrink when they see a player like a Michael Jordan. Some players fold under that light of having to guard that man. His reputation around the league puts fear in people's hearts. Right? That matters. Shooting percentage versus field goal percentage. Shooting a shot further away from the basket has less of a percentage from laying the ball in. Right? So you can't compare somebody who practically lays the ball in. It's like comparing Shaq to Steph Curry. Shaq's always going to have a higher field goal percentage. Why? Because he's dunking the damn ball. Right? But we all know to make these stupid ass arguments when we know Steph Curry's the better shooter. Right? Another thing is the mid-range shot is the lowest percentage shot in basketball. Right? But what it does is it makes you elite when you combine it with the other levels of scoring, right? Because you have more than one way to beat somebody, right? So I want to give you guys some numbers, right? Because you guys love numbers. Kobe averaged in the 2000s from 1999 to 2009, 28 points per game, 6 rebounds, and 5 assists. Now, what does that sound like to you? That sounds like best player in the league numbers, right? Wrong. Because nerds want to go to career averages. Career averages don't tell you the impact of a player. It tells you their whole career numbers put together, right? So Michael Jordan's numbers went down when he went to the Wizards. But we all know Michael Jordan as a Chicago Bull, right? So we don't judge people based on their last years going out. We judge them in their primes. That makes sense, unless you're a nerd and you're trying to diminish people's reputations and their legacies. Right? So these are the things that matter. Stats is the only reason why you get stats at all is to win the fucking game. Period. Now this is another episode of the Kobe Bryant Film Room. Kobe Bryant Film Room versus the Nerds. Part 1.